Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Tardy, and I'm super excited today to have Brian Kurtz on the show. Now, let me tell you how I met him. I was at a conference at Ryan Lee's event, and Derek Halpern, my good friend, was like, "Do you know that guy?" And I'm like, "I don't." He's like, "You need to." And then he walked over and introduced me to him. He works as an entrepreneur, we call him, through Boardroom, and has grown it to be extremely successful from just a few million to over $150 million in revenue. And I am so excited to have him on the show today. Thanks so much for coming on, Brian.
My pleasure, Jamie. And I've been a huge fan of yours, and congratulations on your new book.
Which is crazy because I emailed a bunch of people for the book. I didn't think Brian would remember me at all. And he's like, "Of course I remember you." It was like a year before when I met you in person.
I bought the book on Amazon immediately. I mean, come on.
Oh my gosh, you make me so excited. Yeah. That's crazy. Well, number one, how do you even remember? Because I was just chatting with you. Oh, do you know so-and-so? And you remember so many people. One of my clients from years ago, you remember.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't remember names. I always remember situations. And, when I'm at Ryan Lee's one of my best friends. So, anybody I meet at a Ryan, it's context. I probably, if I met you at the Starbucks in Westport, Connecticut, I'd have no idea who you are. But, now I would forever because we're Skyping. So,
but yeah, it pays to know people then, huh? Ryan, I'm cool with Ryan. That means I'm cool with you. All right, good.
Yeah.
Good networking tactics for sure. Well, take me through this because I got an email from a friend of mine, Chris, that is working with you. And he's like, "Are you cool with doing an interview with an entrepreneur?" And I was like, "Yes." Now, I know it's not technically the same thing, but you have helped grow this company insanely, and I know how amazing you are. So how did you get into that piece of it?
Yeah, so it's an interesting journey I've had. I wasn't born out of a poor kid, not being able to eat, and because most of my career I didn't have to eat what I killed. It was a different journey. So it's not the hero's journey from when Joe Polish talks about being on the back of a truck, 97 pounds, freebasing cocaine. Not me. Okay. Not to say that I was, Mr. Given everything on a silver platter. So when I graduated college, I wanted to be a writer. I mean, I was a film critic for my school paper. I was an English major. I really learned how to read and write in college. And so when I got out and my second job, I got to this company Boardroom, ended up in the in-house list department. And the entrepreneur, the guy who was the kitchen table, well, actually the basement startup for this company in 1972, I was just 11 years later is when I got here in 81. It was, a $3 million business, all direct marketing. I was on the list side of things. So I kind of learned direct marketing from the audience side, learning the list business, learning that part of it. And Marty and I clicked immediately. Like Marty became, if you could call somebody an ultimate mentor, he was it for me. I mean, almost like a second dad to me. He just passed away last October, and we are doing a huge tribute event to him in September. And the thing that happened with Marty and I is that he clearly saw me as a potential partner in the business very early. So I don't know what the magic was that says become a partner in a $3 million business that eventually gets to 150 with your help. That's a pretty good path. But I had to work pretty hard to get there. So that's the entrepreneurial part and the idea generating part and the stuff that I really do bring to the table. But I'm very clear, I'm a member of Dan Sullivan's Strategic Coach as well. And Dan has told me in no uncertain terms, stop apologizing for not being a bootstrap entrepreneur. You can help so many people go from that 3 million to 50 million, 3 million to 100 million because of what you've experienced doing what you did. And I did become an equity partner in the business. It wasn't like I was just an employee. So I had that special relationship with Marty and the company. And so that gave me a lot more of the ability to be what we're calling an entrepreneur. And some of the things that I've implemented have been, for me, legendary. Some people think they are, some people don't. I think everything I do is legendary, even if it fails, because I had to work so hard at it to fail. So all of that. But I think that, I'm sort of done apologizing for not being a bootstrap entrepreneur. And I've been on a lot of interviews and podcasts, with people that want to, who are in their 20s or 30s. They're building a business. They did start it from their basement or their kitchen table. They are probably in a more deprived state than I was. I mean, I was always making $12,000 when I started at Boardroom, but I was still able to pay my rent in Brooklyn. So I wasn't, I wasn't in this like big cash flow crunch where it was, a horrible situation. But I really know that world. I really do. And I've spent a lot of time studying that world and helping that world. So a lot of the people that I've consulted with, whether informally or formally, I've really tried to help, think through a lot of the things. But if I'm not the guy to go to for, the bootstrap entrepreneur manual, I am the guy to go to for, how do you generate ideas in an entrepreneurial organization, for leverage, for, in a direct response marketing context. That's kind of my sweet spot. That's where I think I've got some superpowers. So, I don't want to apologize for not being for starting it on my own. Now I do think this company, I've been building this for 33 years, so it's been an incredible ride. I mean, I wish we were still at 150 million. A lot of that was because we got into the direct response television business after being in direct mail and then being able to make a lot of stuff work online. But when it was all working together and all boats were rising, it was just so exciting. And that's how we got to 150 million. We're more in the $40 million range now. And I'm not embarrassed to say that. I think it's a right sizing of what the company could and should be. And we still have a lot of growing pains about, how you deal with content in an online world when you came from an offline world. And that's what I've been teaching. That's what I've been trying to get the eternal truths of direct marketing to as many people as possible who are just coming up and mostly just doing email or online. Because I think there's huge opportunities in multi-channel marketing.
Okay.
So that's kind of the quick story without getting into too much granular. I'll go anywhere you want to go, though.
All right, I'm ready. So that's okay. That's the reason why I was like, heck yes, I want to have you on the show. I don't care that you didn't start your company. And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted you on is because I think your mindset in growing companies is way bigger than even a lot of the people that I've had on the show before, because 40 million, 150 million, just in general, having something that's that huge is so important for us to see also. So, right. I mean, I have a whole bunch of questions for you.
Okay.
Because so you started you started with that company before I was born. And so you've been in this industry for a ridiculous long time. Like you said, you've been offline at first and then you were online and you've sort of seen the transition. So what I want to ask, because I'm a huge future of technology geek, was this predictable? I mean, I know the internet you didn't know in 1981 about the internet or anything like that, but did you see the trend and did you sort of know that things were coming along?
It was hard to predict what the internet would be and the things that change so quickly now. The one thing I did know, as soon as I started seeing email and I started seeing websites and squeeze pages and all of that, I saw the internet as the ultimate direct marketing medium. I saw it as something that was not, because I think the initial thing is, oh man, this is so much cheaper than direct mail. We can do email at $1 a thousand or 75 cents a thousand, whereas, we're paying $500 per thousand in direct mail. Obviously, direct response television is incredibly expensive. So is, and comparably radio is expensive and space advertising. So with email being so cheap, the inclination was originally, oh, you can just throw stuff out there and whatever sticks will be fine. And I went the other way. I saw it as, if we could use the internet and email for good as opposed to evil, and not because I was so conscious all the time of my list and not bombarding my customers with a lot of crap, because I couldn't afford to bombard them with crap because direct mail was so expensive. So I think that mindset, I saw it right away, and that if you started realizing getting return on investment in everything that you do, and I don't care if your media is cheap or expensive, you always want to get a return on investment on everything that you spend, and that's a direct marketing principle. And so it's come full circle. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was at an event, some of the best internet marketers on the planet, through Jeff Walker. I don't know if through PLF. A lot of your listeners probably know him. And we were talking about Facebook advertising, and we were talking about a lot of the people in the room live and die based on the amount of affiliates they can get for a marketing campaign. And I try to explain to people, not trying to be grandpa or the dinosaur in the room, but it's like affiliate marketing is just an extension of endorsed mailings that we did in the 1970s and the 1980s. So it's on steroids, and it's everybody mailing for each other at a very low cost. However, what it's done, it's made a lot of lazy marketers because a lot of people are doing just affiliates and not in addition to actually buying media that might pay out. And what I'm the kick in the head is watching great young online entrepreneurs figure out that they could offer a very low price product as an introductory product, get people into a funnel, get people and pay for the advertising initially. God forbid we're going to pay for advertising, right? So they pay for advertising, they get people into a funnel, and they realize they're never going to make the money back on that first sale. And this is a lifetime value proposition that we've been living in since the 1960s. Not me personally. I was born in 58. So, I wasn't even doing direct marketing in the 60s. But Reader's Digest was. And Reader's Digest had figured out that someone who buys a book for $30 that you lose money on, that buys a subscription and three other books, now can be invested in a whole different way. That type of thing, I saw that. I did see that. I'm not saying I was Nostradamus, but I saw it. I saw that that's what the internet could be. But I want to be out there as much as I can, kind of talking about these issues, these eternal truths of marketing and direct marketing, because I think everybody can just be better. I think all boats can rise when online marketers realize they shouldn't be in one channel. I always say someone who defines himself as an online marketer is being kind of silly. Why would you want to define yourself by a channel, right? Why would you want to define, and why don't you want to be a solution in different channels? And there's so much opportunity to do direct mail, even on the back end, maybe not as a lead generator. I mean, email is still the most efficient way to do list building through squeeze pages, through all the techniques that you're an expert in and more than I do. But I think that once you get a good customer and you can keep them, on your list for a long time, to be able to use other channels and move them around and see what they like. And maybe they like some physical product, believe it or not. God forbid we ship a product, right? The perceived value of physical product is huge. And a lot of people who've been completely online with digital product are seeing that as well. So I did see like some of this early on, and now I'm seeing so much opportunity to not be pigeonholed into just being affiliate marketing, just being online, just being direct mail, just being print, just being TV or radio. It's all connected. And if I can be the guy, I mean, the book I want to write is I want it to be called O to O to O, offline to online to offline. So basically that any transaction can start in any medium, and you can move people in and out based on their preferences of different media and different perceived values in that media. And I just think there's tremendous. I'm seeing a lot of examples of it now, and in the book I plan to accumulate a lot of case histories, which I think could be incredibly instructive to a new generation of marketers coming forward that are basically, it's online or nothing. And online is great. I mean, I'm not being a Luddite here. Don't get me wrong. I love the internet. I think it will catch on. And I love email. I love email marketing. I think there's so much power in it. As someone who's a student of copy as well, I see some of the best copywriters as the passionate entrepreneur writing about what they like best or what they do best. And they're not trained copywriters, and yet some of the best copy I read online are text emails from people passionately talking about their product and services. So seeing a lot of really nice transitions there. I'm seeing a lot of crap too, and I've been blogging about it, that a lot about, just because it's cheap doesn't mean you bombard your audience with a bunch of crap. And retail is the worst. I mean, sign up for some retail credit card and then get on their email list. and I'll show you what really bad email marketing is all about.
Ooh, okay. So I want to go over good versus bad in just a second, but I think it's really awesome that you have such a history. Like, because you keep calling yourself a dinosaur, which I think is hilarious. My mentor was so old school, only offline, not a tech guy at all. And I remember being like, but I want to do online and I'm a geek and I love computers, right? And it's so funny how I go back to what I call my roots, right? To be like, okay, all right, he had something. Like,
Yeah.
it's not as though I can ignore that and move just on this, which I think is amazing that you've got such a history because it repeats itself, right? You can see the trends
Absolutely.
online and offline.
And I'm educating myself. I mean, I'm in mastermind groups where I am by far, if I'm not the dumbest person in the room, I'm close to it. I mean, that's one of my credos. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And so that's why masterminding with people who are smarter than you is so important. And what's fun, I make the dinosaur jokes, but I'm not extinct, so that's good. And
That is
so
good.
and I've got the way I figured I still might have another 50 years left. So I've got to figure out how I bring something to the table, but I'm getting so much. I am basically getting a PhD in online marketing. So all of these mastermind groups that I spend a fortune to be in is my tuition for my PhD. That's how I look at it. And the fact that I can still give stuff that's powerful. I mean, I'm getting the better end of the deal. I'm telling you right now, because I'm hanging out with the best. I mean, I only put myself in groups where almost everybody in the room is smarter than me, and I can't think of a better way to live my life at the moment. Because otherwise, I heard of a new definition of retirement, and it's not retirement. It's not stop working and go fish. Retirement is you retire from the things that you no longer want to do or that you don't like to do, and you retire from the people that you don't want to be around anymore that don't lift you up. And if you retire from those two things, you have just now created a whole new career for yourself. So
Oh, I love
I got that
that.
from Dan Sullivan.
Oh,
So
really? I'm
yeah,
like, oh, that's awesome. I'm living that now. Sweet, I'm retired. This is great.
yeah. Retirement's not a concept for me. It's not
I can
retirement in the
imagine.
traditional sense.
Yeah.
No, I got too much to do. I got too many things I love. I'm a serial direct marketer, and I'd be nuts not to share this stuff that I have. I love sharing. I just love it.
I love this. So I want to talk about mastermind groups for just a second because I talk about mastermind groups. That's when I started online. And I love the fact that you're talking about this too because you're in super high level masterminds. Can you tell me about some of them and what you really get out of them, the reason why you do it?
Sure. So there are two masterminds, one workshop, but I consider them all in the context of this conversation. We'll consider them all masterminds. So one is Joe Polish's, he calls it Genius Network Mastermind. He calls it the 25K group, which people resent that he labels the group because of a price tag.
Hmm.
But it's actually interesting because it sets the bar that you ain't going in that room if you're not ready to, put up or shut up. So the thing is that it's not just that you're paying $25,000 to be a member, but you're surrounding yourself with people who are living in a contributory way and not in they're giving more than they're taking, everybody in the room. And by giving more, you end up getting more anyway. And I was just on a call with Jay Abraham, the great Jay Abraham,
Wow.
we were talking about Joe's group. And I said, I made the comment about the 25,000 being this nice bar that you set that sets the room up, but then you still have to behave yourself correctly in the room. And I hate the term networking. I actually do. And people call me a master networker and they say I know everybody and that I am connected to all these great people. But to me, you have to contribute before you can connect. And so that would be like a big actionable thing that I would give to your audience that whenever you're in a group, you're surrounded with people and you know everybody in that room can help you with let's assume everybody in the room can help you with your business or your personal life or both. Everybody in the room. You have to think first how I can contribute to boom, 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 everybody in the room and not expect anything in return. If you can, and because you're not expecting anything in return, you get so much more in return. And you may not get it 50-50. In fact, I did a blog post recently that I said the concept of meet me halfway has never existed in my life, in my adult life, because my expectation, because unrealized expectations are the killer for everything. because you expect something from somebody because you gave them something, and then the relationship goes soft because they didn't give you back. Well, you know what? I give 100 0, and if I can get something back, great. But I understand what my contribution is to that person. If they feel beholden to me, great. If they don't, great. I don't give it. I really don't give a crap. And what happened is, even if that person that you gave a lot to didn't give something back, I mentioned before this call, we had a mutual client that we knew, and I said I gave them a lot of free advice. I don't know, but serendipitously, something's going to happen from that. They might have said something like, maybe this interview kind of happened because of that, because you remembered that I was a good guy and I gave them free advice, or that you're working with them now, whatever. That's what, to me, what turns me on. So Joe's group is very much like that. You have to contribute before you connect. And the people in his group, he's expanded from just marketing people to people from Dan Sullivan's group. So you have incredibly successful entrepreneurs in completely different fields than I ever saw before. And that's enlightening for me. I love hearing about people who built multi-million-dollar businesses from scratch. Believe me, the fact that I didn't build this from scratch doesn't take away any of the admiration I have for people who do. And I learn from them. So that's Joe. I'm also in Jeff Walker's product launch formula Platinum Plus group. Now, I've never done an online launch. So perfect transparency. So Jeff invited me as a guest once, and lo and behold, T-Rex the dinosaur delivered something that the folks in that room thought was of use to them in their online work. And so got a noise in my ear.
I'm next to a road.
That's okay. So I thought it was Jeff Walker saying, "Don't talk about the secrets of platinum."
Wait, tell us more.
Yeah, no. Right. There's a lot of stuff that's under the cone of silence. But what I'm learning from those guys, I mean, the dexterity with which they understand using content to sell product and not to go in for the kill right away. That you deliver a lot of great content before you sell something. What a great concept, and boy, I want to be that online entrepreneur, when I sell products online. I don't want to be the guy that's just, I don't want to be Banana Republic giving you a 40% sale every single day and assuming that on the 6th day, you'll take me up on my 40% sale. Not interested in that at all. And then the third group is Strategic Coach, which is Dan Sullivan. And that's more of a workshop. But that's where you work on yourself, and you work on, you got to be accountable to yourself. Marty Edelston, who is the founder of Boardroom, who was my mentor and like a second dad to me, says, I can fool you, you, and you, but I can't fool myself. And so, it's very exciting yet confronting to look at your life, to be around millionaires, to be around the best entrepreneurs in the world, and feeling like a slacker. Now, the thing about feeling like a slacker is that you can't let that stop you. There's an expression, Eleanor Roosevelt has a great quote, which was, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So it's up to you to say, okay, I'm a slacker because Jaime has written a book and I haven't, or whatever, as opposed to embrace the fact that you wrote a book and you're going to give me advice on how to make sure I get my first book published and the mistakes that you might have made and the good things that you did. So you have to be careful with that, but Strategic Coach kind of keeps you in check with yourself. And you're surrounded by amazing people who are achieving at a very high level, which is true with all the groups that I'm in. So I don't know if that was sort of an overview of what I'm in, and, being around those people. I mean, you still have to come back and do stuff. You can't just be in groups all day and talk about it.
Darn, so that sounds way more fun.
It is way more fun. But you gotta confront yourself on what you need to do.
How do you do that? So you're in amazing groups with amazing people that are consistently giving amazing advice, I'm assuming. And this is one of the problems that I have too. So I'm talking to amazing people all the time that give me amazing advice, and I only have so much time. And some of it I can't even come close to implementing, or it's not even in the business model, but it sounds like an awesome idea because they know about this thing. How do you take back and know exactly what to do and what not to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any one great thing to do, because you end up taking pages and pages of notes. You get back, it's pages and pages of notes. So what I do try to do is, while I'm taking the notes, I do try to highlight, I do try to circle the ones that are you got to A, B, and C everything in your life. There's a great book on time management, an old time book that Marty used to give out to people. called How to Take Control of Your Time in Your Life by a guy named Alan Lakin.
Nice.
And it's an old school time management book, but it's actually pretty easy to read, and it's just really basic. It's like every time you make a list, reprioritize that list. Circle, like every exercise I do in any one of those groups, they say write down, for example, write down all the things you've achieved in the last 90 days. So you write them all down. Then the next part of that exercise, circle the three that are the biggest. Then decide which one of those three is the one that's your biggest achievement, and then put that in a different place in your notebook. Then you start talking about the present. This is an exercise you do in Strategic Coach. So you do the last 90 days, you do the present. What are the 5 things you're most excited about right now, or the 10 things, or whatever? After you make the list, go back to the list. Circle the 3 that are the most important. Because you don't always write them down in priority order. So you always have to go back to them and reset the priority. And then what I like to do is take the one. There's another worksheet that we use, but easy enough. Always when you make those lists, take the one and then put it in a place that's a place you go to every day. So you're not, inundated. I did one blog post about, I think the subject line was something like where good ideas go to die or something. And it's the notion of when you're in a brainstorming meeting that there's always more ideas, and the more ideas you have, that kills doing anything. So it's really important to set those priorities. It's a very simple thing. I just read The Rockefeller Habits by Vern Harnish, which is a great book.
Yeah.
And that's you get the big 5 and then the 1. Big 5, then the 1 in terms of priorities. You got to do that with your notes from all of these events. Do I do it every time? No. I mean, it sounds like I'm living a blessed life of being always in the top priority. I am not. I mean, I got to go umpire Little League games because that's one of my passions, and I leave priorities on the table when I go out on the field. So I am awesome. Not, yeah, I'm human, but those are some techniques. And then the same thing, last 90 days, present, and then the next 90 days, when you start saying, what are the 5 things I want to accomplish in the next 90 days? Again, now, keep it tight, too many ideas means nothing gets done usually. So that's kind of a shorthand of what I try to do. And if there's a plane ride involved on the way home from these, I try to do it on the plane ride home.
That's smart.
Because you get back to the office,
I know, sheets everywhere, all over the place.
Yeah, look at the crap behind me. I mean, I'm surrounded by junk, a good junk, but a lot of junk. So yeah, I mean, you got to have that free time. And I don't follow a lot of the great techniques, like Tim Ferriss's thing about, don't check your email in the morning and stuff. I'm terrible. My phone's next to my bed. I get up. It's like, who emailed me overnight from the West Coast that I want to respond to while I'm in my pajamas. I'm a little obsessive with that. So
that's good to know. All right, I'll know when to email you to get a better response.
Yeah, exactly. No video on that. No video.
That's awesome. What I want to talk about, because you're such an amazing marketer, and at the beginning you started referencing like there's good and there's bad marketing. I would love to hear your definition of like what's good right now and going well, and what's the bad stuff right now. I know you said the 40% off for Banana Republic, probably not the best, but tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things that I see is, there's a bunch of, I could go on with I'll do the bads first, but
okay.
The things that I see that I really cringe at are, and a lot of some of it's in the affiliate world where people are sending non sequiturs to their list, for example. And I've heard horror stories about this. Someone who's got like a woo-woo list of people who are worshiping somebody for their daily tips of, inner meditation, and then they send a real estate investing offer to the list to make money. I'm using that as an example, and I see some of that, and it's like, why would you want to have that level of unsubscribes to get the cash in the short term? So that's a real bad one. And I don't see, with the people that I hang out with, most of them wouldn't do that. But, sometimes, and easy for me to say because, cash flow is not the number one priority for me. And for a lot of people it is. And so you have to cash in on that. So I think so then the good would be attached to that would be starting to invest in ways of buying media at an acceptable return on investment and learning the ways to buy media at an acceptable return on investment versus, and some of that can be very cheap, as we know. There's a lot of things you can do in social media and create lists, and I have to do a lot of that. One of my 5 things for the next 90 days is to get my personal list to 5,000. It's only at about 1,000 now. I mean, I know I'm a slacker,
And then
but
in the next, how many you're gonna get from 1 to 5? Wow, go okay, but
I
you
want
know
to go to
all the
one
time.
five.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean, but I think I have a bunch of things
But
that I
tell us how do you do that? Because a lot of people that are listening probably only have a list of about 1,000, and they want a list of 5,000 too, and they don't know what to do. So what are you gonna do in the next 90
yeah.
days?
So some of the things I have, I mean, I have a pretty long list, and I don't know if I'll get there, but I want to set the audacious goal so that I know I have something to shoot at. And if I don't get to 5,000 in 90 days, I'm going to get to 5,000 in 60 days by at the latest. But it's really, and so, doing podcasts and getting people to opt into my list like this. Um,
Opt
um,
into his list. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
we'll give people the opt in for my list. I want to, I think leading up to my event in September, which will be really big, being able to get people, it really inspired me to go through my Outlook email address list, which I had about 4,000 records in. So once I got the losers from high school that I inhaled with off that list,
They're not gonna
um,
buy anything from you?
I
No.
don't think so. They don't even answer the phone when I call, and they're like my brothers. So, but what I'm doing there is I'm gonna create. It's painful because to do that by hand, but that's the best way to do it the first time. So I'm really going to start targeting in. I'm going to use LinkedIn. One of the things I'll give an interesting tip to your folks. I assume most people when they get a LinkedIn request, they look at it and they just accept it for the most part, unless it looks like someone's stalking them or something. And I don't know how. There's a way to tell that, if they have they're from some foreign country and they have no connections at all, or no people on their list. But what I do with my LinkedIn is I accumulate them over a week or two, and I get a lot. I get 30 or 40 requests probably over a 2-3 week period, and then I spend usually on the weekend about an hour, and I go through each one of them individually. Some people I might know, most people I don't. I go to their request. I look at their profile. I look at where we're connected, whether people, organizations, background, are you a copywriter? Are you a direct marketer? Are you a baseball umpire? Whatever. And then I send them an email. Not a LinkedIn email either. I send them a personal email because if you just reply to a LinkedIn request, you get their name, their email address that they've signed up to LinkedIn for. And I send them a personal email and say, thanks for linking in. Looks like we both know Jaime, and that's incredible because she's awesome and I love her book. I hope you do too. You should sign up for my list at briankurtz.me, blah, 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 and hope we can connect soon. Now, it does involve sometimes some people who then will start to stalk me, but then I watch that closely. But then when I do that, then I accept their request. And now I'm going to go to my LinkedIn file, which is also about 2,000 people, and I'm going to try to, import all of those email addresses because I know every one of them got at least one email from me. Because I don't go out usually and request people to link in with me. So I'm usually responding to their requests. So therefore, it's not an intimate relationship, but I've got something. And plus, it's more interesting. It's like just to hit accept, 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 and then I'm not bragging that I have 2,000 contacts. I will brag that I have 2,000 contacts who I've emailed every single one of them
That's
before. So that's an
insane.
right.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. So that's added.
Yeah. But the fact
That
that you're the media buying guy and you're still doing 1-to-1 on
yeah.
LinkedIn is really impressive because a lot of people, especially like newer entrepreneurs, they're like, I want the fast, I want the,
Right.
the Facebook ads, that's sexy. And emailing people on LinkedIn does not sound as sexy as that sort of thing. But that's
It's
what you're
not,
doing.
but it's about quality and not quantity. So the 5,000 to me is a goal because it would be really nice. But those 5,000, I don't want to. I mean, I've seen the products and they're good. Get 10,000 fans.
Yeah.
My Brian Moran,
Brian.
who's
Yep.
brilliant, 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 brilliant. Um, I might do that. I don't know that, but to me, that's not really unless I'm doing it, and maybe it's not 10,000. Maybe I'll get my 5,000 fans by giving away some free. I want to give away really good content at the top of that, and make it a relationship. There's a great quote from my buddy Dean Graciosi, who's one of the great marketers ever. I mean, he's the real estate millionaire, been on TV, and just an awesome dude. And Dean has an expression. He says, people refund transactions, not relationships. And so, I grew up in a world of $39 subscriptions and books, and, cancellations is part of life. When you're selling $1,000 and $2,000 digital products to help people with their business and you start getting 30-40% return rates, you did something wrong in either the development of that product, the product's a piece of crap, or the relationship that you built before you sold them that product was flawed. And so, and again, there's a balance here. And a lot of people are probably listening to this going, this guy is crazy. He's never going to get a big list. He's not going to be Brendan Burchard. I know that. Brendan's a friend of mine. I love him. I envy the fact that he's a household word, for most people in this space. Not the game I'm playing right now. Do I need to play in some of those pools? I probably do. And I have a bunch of other things I'm building my list. I mean, I think a lot of it is I really want to build it. I don't want to build it too slowly, but I want to build it organically. I want true double opt-in people who've read my content, who want to be in my tribe, as Seth Godin would say. And, Jeff Walker talks about this all the time. Why, and maybe it's my age, I don't know, but at 56 years old, I don't want to be hanging out with people I don't want to hang out with. So I want to attract people into my life and that not just think the way I do, but that I can learn from and they can learn from me and it becomes symbiotic. So maybe the 5,000, the way I'm doing it is not going to be easy to do in 90 days. But, I just did this, to me, it's so funny, getting, 60 opt-ins in one day is like huge for me, right? 60 really good opt-ins. Yeah. And so I've done that a couple of times with some podcasts and I'm like, that's exciting for me.
Right, let's see if ours can beat it. So let's, right. But it's so funny. That's what I do too, right? So I'll do a guest post and be like, because still to this day, you check them and you're like, oh, look how many I got from the Michael Hyatt blog post I just did. That's so cool. Or the book or whatever it is.
Just put me to shame for a minute. How many followers you have? How many followers do you have?
In general?
In general.
No, I only have 16,000. I don't have very many.
16,000 is pretty, that's not too shabby.
My people, though, and that's the funny thing, I've never done paid traffic or anything like that. So I need to let's talk about media buying, actually. Tell you
I think now that you have a book, and a brand and a great personality, I think that you are really in a great position to do some paid traffic, I think.
All right, so let's talk about that. Because you're the guy that talks about media buying, but offline stuff too in general. And I haven't done any offline stuff at all either. So you give me some advice, Brian. What do you suggest?
So
it's my show. I can ask this stuff.
No, and I think this is really good advice for everybody. So you have a 16,000 name list. Have you done a lot of segmentation of that list?
Yeah, I have Infusionsoft now, and so we're going through and surveying and doing all that fun stuff. Right,
so you want to know interest areas, of course. The most important thing you want to know is all of the transaction data. So you want to know who your highest, and again, you might do this, but a lot of people don't. I don't think it should be very rare that you communicate with your 16,000 name list with all of those people with the same message.
Ooh.
Moving copy to different segments of your list is so critical, and it's such an obvious thing. Now, in direct mail, that was super expensive, and we still did it. I have stories that I tell about having two different control packages. We call them control packages in direct mail. That's the best package that you're using for a particular offer. That one would go to a particular group of this is outside lists now in direct mail. So one would be more of an opportunity seeker audience, and one would be more of a broad-based consumer audience. So the letter and the direct mail piece that I would send to the Money Magazine list would be very different than the direct mail package that I would send to a list of people who came in through some opportunity seeker type offer. So using that as sort of an example, can you see the application to anybody's email list? You have people on your list that are clearly VIPs, and you have people on your list that you want to move from suspects to prospects to VIPs or whatever. Everybody would have different criteria of how they would segment the list, right?
Yep.
Some of it's going to be by, and actually it's all based on a basic tenet of direct marketing, which is RFM. Have you ever heard the term RFM?
No.
Okay, so RFM is the basics of list selection and media buying for everything that we ever did in direct mail. Okay. And it all applies to online. R is for recency.
Okay.
Someone who came on your list last week is worth more than someone who came on 6 months ago and never bought anything from you. Recency, we call that hotline.
Okay.
Frequency, if they came on your list and bought something, or they came on your list and clicked on something, they came on your list and started more action with you, that's frequency. In our case, it was always about how many times they bought, and frequency became a multi-buyer, as we called it, which could be you too. It could be they could be bought multiple products. And then monetary is the M, how much they spent. And now you can start seeing, you start mixing and matching those criteria. You will have a VIP select of the people who've been on your list for the shortest amount of time. They came on recently. They've done a bunch of things already. They've been active with you in some way, buying or responding, and they might have even spent money with you. Now, those people deserve a very different communication than the new person that just came on your list from Facebook. And not only that, it doesn't always have to be email. You know, if you start thinking about spending some time and effort, and I think direct mail is still a wonderful medium for the back end of all this. I'm doing it. So for my event, I have this huge event in September. So I've got a list of people that I've done big email blasts. I hate the word blast. Email mailings to. Big lists of email mailings. And now I know on some of those lists, there are certain people on those lists that have spent, you know, $100,000, for example, with a particular guru. I'm going to take that subset and I'm going to create a letter, and I'm actually going to put, it's actually on paper. You know, you've heard of that, right?
Wait, what is it?
Yeah, it's like, it's a paper thing. And then you actually put it in an envelope. It's like this thing you put paper into, and you put a stamp on it, and then you actually
It's a sticker, not a stamp.
Yeah, it's a sticker, right? You put a little smiley sticker on it, right? Because then it feels like email. And then it's all personalized, and think about that.
Yeah.
And it's funny. It's a little bit of an aside, but it's really, really interesting. I've spent my whole career dedicated to direct marketing education, and I've taught at colleges direct marketing. I did a full semester at my alma mater back in 1989. You were born, weren't you?
Yes, I was born.
Please tell me you were born, please. Okay. So I did a full semester at Rutgers in 1989, and you know, it's just so interesting that all of these principles of direct marketing and direct mail all still apply. It fascinates me. So when I speak to students, I did something last year where I spoke to 350 students. They were all like seniors in college looking for marketing careers, specifically direct marketing. So I said to them, I got up in front of them and I said, you know, when you go on an interview, how many of you send, as soon as you get home, send an email response, you know, saying that, you know, thank you for the interview, blah, 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 blah. Almost everybody raised their hand. And then I said, how many of you actually send a letter? Very few people.
Yep.
Then how many of you people actually would send a three-dimensional package to the person you interviewed with based on, and send them something based on something you talked about? Like you talked about an author, you talked about an article, and you actually, there's a thing called a paperclip. I don't know if you've ever seen them. So you take this paperclip and you attach it to a letter and you put it in this big envelope from you with this thing. Thank you for interviewing with me. I found this article by, you know, John Smith that we were talking about, who's a great author about this topic, one of my favorites, blah, blah, blah. Don't lie in the letter, but do something. And so then I said to them, and I go to my microphone, I go, if you do that, you will be the only one doing it. So differentiation was what I was trying to teach.
Totally.
And so this is about that. Now let's take it to marketing. Let's take it.
I've never thought of that. So Dan Miller, who wrote the foreword of my book, thankfully, I had sent him he said he loved Back to the Future, so I sent him a DeLorean model replica.
Fantastic. Three-dimensional is great.
I had no idea. That's so awesome. Everything that
Stu McLaren just told me about Dan Miller.
Yeah.
And I love Stu too. And he said Dan Miller is somebody I should definitely try to get to my event. So I need to be connected to
I'll do an intro to him too.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
Dan. All right,
good. I don't know him, and I've only heard amazing things about him.
Oh yeah, he's amazing. Well, and I totally interrupted you, but I didn't. It's funny because to me, I've always seen it as a networking thing, right? I did this with my mentor. I sent him a letter before he ever became my mentor, and that was one of the reasons why, a thank you letter, which is one of the reasons why he became my mentor. Because he was like, "You mailed me. Nobody your age mails me," and so. But I've never thought about doing it to my list before, which I'm sure they would adore, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody listening will be like,
"What
yes.
What about like your top?" 50 people, send them a three-dimensional package with something in there that, whether it's, a blog post that you print up. I mean, it doesn't have to be that extravagant.
I
I mean,
send $1 million chocolate bars
love that.
to my
Oh,
clients.
love that stuff. So, Perry Marshall, who's one of my, he's speaking at my event. He's one of my heroes because people think he's the Google AdWords guy.
Yeah.
Don't let him fool you. This guy's a direct response titan, right? So Perry, when you're in his Renaissance Club, you get a post in your email. The new newsletter is up. But then within like 2 or 3 days, in the mail, I get a 9 by 12 envelope with a transcript of the newsletter with a CD. And Joe Polish does the same thing with his Genius Network interviews. And don't underestimate physical product. And it's not just that. It's not just direct mail. And everybody's going to say, oh, he's just a direct mail guy. It's just about the relationship building through different media and showing people that if you're, as you move them up that ascension model, which we all know in the online world, everything in the ascension model doesn't have to be online. Everything in the ascension model doesn't have to be digital. So,
it's almost more quality and better if it's not. Like, it feels like it builds the relationship even more.
It should,
Yeah.
not with everybody. Look, some people why is this dinosaur sending me a direct mail piece? But frankly, I don't know anybody, mailboxes have not been destroyed by the government. They're still there. And I have this phrase that says the least crowded inbox is the one you grew up with. Maybe not the one you grew up with, but the one I grew up with. The mailboxes are emptier. Direct mail is a lot more expensive. And if you've got the best creative approach, I have an interview that I did with Joe Polish on my site. It's called Everyone's Going Right, Time to Go Left. And it's really Joe. And Joe is a huge fan of just direct response marketing, whether it's whatever the medium. So that's why Joe and I are like brothers. And Joe, we spent like an hour just talking about, maybe direct mail is not the way to go for prospecting. It's a little too expensive. It's like making sushi. You don't want to do it, unless you got, I'd rather buy my sushi. I don't want to make sushi at home. And direct mail is complicated. It's messy, right? It's got a lot of moving parts if you don't know what you're doing. However, on the back end, anybody can do direct mail. Here I am, I've mailed billions of pieces of direct mail. And yet for this event, I'm preparing, you should see me at my desk. I'm preparing a letter with my assistant that we're going to hand put into envelopes. It just went out to like 180 people.
Nice.
Not that hard to do.
I love that.
And the response I got, now you do have to get them to go from offline to online, right? I have to get them to go to, I could have an 800 number, which is another way to go. I could have a reply card, but these are really online people already. So in that respect, I think if I get a good URL or a Perl, I can get them to get online very, very quickly from that letter. So again, you don't have that barrier anymore of if I send direct mail, I can't get them to go online. My general audience for Bottom Line's products, they're like 80 years old. So they're not going from a direct mail piece to a website so fast. They have
Depends
to
on your audience. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the people that are already, people on my list, you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, cool.
So they're basically, they're totally online people.
Yep.
And yet I believe they probably have a mailbox.
Hopefully. Don't have a landline, but we definitely have mailboxes.
That's okay. That's okay. But you know what? Giving them using 800 numbers and using telemarketing on the back end, don't underestimate that. That's another medium.
Yeah.
That's so underused. And when it gets used, so go back to the good and the bad. When it's used, with, cold calling through recorded messages, that's the bad part.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that. Oh, good. That's the bad part.
Yeah, that's the bad part. But the good part is, you have permission from your audience, from your best people. I have this one joke. I've used it in a lot of podcasts, but I'll mention it here because there'll be people that haven't heard it.
Do it.
I looked at someone's database once. It was an online marketer. Let's assume she had 10,000 people on her list, and she was showing me a breakout. How many people bought one product from her? And that was like, 10,000 people. Then you go, people who bought two products, so that's a smaller number. And then it goes all the way down to the bottom. So she had one person who bought 17 products from her. She has a lot of different products and stuff she does.
Yeah.
So my joke was, which wasn't a joke, how many times have you that person who bought 17 products, how many times have you invited them over for dinner? And I wasn't really joking.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that person get like a special phone call from you, assuming you have permission and they're not in the telephone preference service where you can't call them, or they've given you their phone number in some other transaction. I'm calling because you bought 17 products from me.
Yeah.
What else should I be doing? What else should talk about surveying the right person? I hate focus groups because, 7 people in a room or 10 people in a room, they come for the cookies. They're not coming to, you're not going to get the big picture on what your business is going to be all about. You'll get some feedback. I want to talk to the person who bought 17 products from me. Like, what makes that person tick? What were your favorite? What were your least favorite? What's missing in the favorites? What's missing in the, talk about a product development call, and then after the call, I'm sending them that Star Wars thing or the Back to the
DeLorean, Back to the
Oh,
Future.
I'm sending them a three-dimensional package. I'm sending them a bottle of champagne.
That's a really good point.
Right?
I get tons of emails from people saying like, I love you, which is so amazing. And my assistant always sends them to me and goes like, these are another Jaime Tardy super fan. And I don't go into Infusionsoft and tag them, but I really should, because I want to, like, I love emailing these people. They're amazing people in general.
That would be what we call a tick on the file. So tick is a good name here. Yep. So when I have a database of 9 million names offline, 9 million records of people who bought from us going back into the late 1970s. Wow. Address corrected. They don't all buy anymore, of course, and a lot of them are, when they're dead, we try to get. They were all, but we have a lot of health products, so I've kept them healthy too.
Awesome, good job.
Good job. So the longer they can buy more stuff, and I'm keeping them healthy. Life's good. So everything that they do, just like you want to keep records online of what they clicked on, what they're interested in, where they went on your site. Same thing. Every piece of data could be valuable. And when you're not in in my case, I have to have what we call a trailer record on every one of those 9 million names of everything that they bought, every time that they were mailed, every time they mailed and didn't respond, every time they mailed and did respond and then didn't pay, or they paid, because we have a bill me offer. It's not always a cash upfront offer, a credit card offer. So we have all of that data. So then when we go back with a new offer, we're modeling the names based on all of those criteria in a scientific way. But you can see that you could trickle that down into, I always say the 9 million name database should be treated the same way as the 900 name database. And as someone who's got 800 names, or, right now, not a big list, but I'm trying to treat them the same way. Now, you can't do everything. I'm not modeling them, believe me. But when I find people on my list that are super fans, there was one that was a super fan that was like so bummed they couldn't afford my event in September. And I just like went one, I don't have a payment plan, and they were in a foreign country, really far away. I think it was Dubai. And I went back to them and I said, I'm not doing a payment plan. You've been such an amazing fan. You're responding to every one of my blogs. You're sending it out on your Facebook page. I don't even ask you to do that. What can I do to get you to the event? And I set up a handheld with my assistant, like doing direct mail, payment plan, and she's coming to the event.
I gave me goosebumps. That's so crazy that like we can connect with one person out of, and you've got lists of crazy people.
I know, with a $3,500 ticket, you can do a lot. I mean, with a 30, and I wasn't doing that with $39 books and newsletters. You have to weigh it, right? I mean, it's, but still, this is fun for me. Because I've never been in high ticket.
I can tell.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I'm a little enthusiastic.
Well, and it's so crazy that you're like getting into this space because everybody that's big in this space in general. So you can be like, hey, everybody else I know has already done this before. So you only take the cream of the crop stuff, which is why I asked you that, right? You only know the good stuff from all the amazing people that you work with. And unfortunately,
your questions are great. They've really inspired me, obviously, hopefully
you'll have to come back on the show again at some point. I know we have to start wrapping up because unfortunately I want to ask many more questions and I can't. But the last question that I always ask everyone, I gave you a heads up beforehand, so
okay,
you should be prepared and ready for this one, hopefully. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. What's one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
There's a bunch that I would choose here. I've been blogging about a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about today, and I'm going to blog about a lot more, and that'll be my first ebook. But I think the concept of 100-0, and then how do you put it into place today? Mm-hmm. So I would encourage everybody here. You're going to have some interaction in the next week, whether it's just a connection to a new person, could be a major negotiation of a contract, could be something in between those two things, but it could be very major, very minor. But I encourage you to think about when you go into it, don't start with how am I going to get my 50-50 part of this deal. Go into this as I'm going to throw out 100-0. I'm going to put out myself in the biggest way possible, whether it's a LinkedIn request, a Facebook request, a contract that you don't know what the results might be on the first test and that you want to leave it open-ended. Let's do this deal like this, but let's revisit it when we get the results, which is what direct marketing is all about. And then we'll see what the profit pie looks like and actually do the deal that makes sense so no one feels slighted or cheated. So I guess you could put that into effect in almost anything that you do in relationships, business, personal, otherwise. And it seems kind of simple, but I will guarantee you that the world will reward you for being totally generous in that 100-0 capacity. So, and I got a lot of feedback on that blog post about 100-0. So I figured I really wanted to dive one step deeper and just like was that specific enough?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing, we are so lucky that we live in an age right now where we can do that. I love giving. I don't care if I get anything in the back in return. My coach gets mad at me. She's like, "You never ask for anything." I'm like, "I know, but I love giving to people and helping." And like we are so lucky that we live in a place that's like that now. I know my mentor before would be like, "No, there's competition and there's this and there's that." And like the fact that I can just give, and so many people are like, "How can I help you? Let me see what I can do." Like that just makes everybody's day. It makes everybody happier. And that's kind of why we're here too, right?
Yeah. I think there's sometimes where it's, a business relationship that, needs a big contract and needs, all the bells and whistles for protection. I'm not saying don't use, I don't let lawyers run my business, but you got to be protected. So this is not about being flippant.
Yeah.
But it's really about being generous.
I love that. Thank you so much, Brian. So tell us about your event, where we can sign up on your list, because that is so important to you and you were so excited about that. So tell us more, please.
Okay, so let me do the list first, because then it makes this interview much more evergreen, because the event's happening this September of 2014. So if someone's listening after that at some point, because I'm sure your stuff gets circulated.
You missed it, darn it.
Yeah, you missed it, but I'll have DVDs. And so my site is briankurtz.me, briankurtz.me. I couldn't get briankurtz.com. Somebody had it already. I was way too late to the party on that. So at briankurtz.me, there's a squeeze page that has an interview that Joe Polish did with Marty and I about how we built a $100 million business in less than a decade. So it's a really good interview. Marty, who passed away last October, really, he and I, this was done about 10 years ago, about 10 years ago. He was still with it. It was after his stroke, but he was still with it. It was really powerful. Mm-hmm. So that's and then that site, I just have a lot of other content, that interview with Joe Polish about direct mail and a bunch of other things about newsletters and a bunch of stuff. Nice. So it's all free and all that. And then I blog to that list I do a post every week, which I'll turn into an ebook shortly. So that's briankurtz.me. The event is called the Titans of Direct Response. It's in September 11th and 12th. There is a VIP for the 13th, but it's sold out already. And the speakers are Dan Kennedy, Joe Sugarman, Jay Abraham, Perry Marshall, all of the best copywriters who've ever written for Boardroom, responsible for 650 million pieces of direct mail. Gary Bencivenga, who's probably the best living copywriter, whom a lot of your listeners probably never heard of, who will be speaking after he coming out of retirement to speak. And he's the most amazing copywriter, anybody who wants to have any creative input. And then I am going to do a roundtable on masterminding and true accountability with the three guys who are in my $25 group, not my $25,000 group, my $25 group, which are my buddies here in Connecticut, Ryan Lee, Jim Quick, and Michael Fishman.
Oh, Michael, that's great. The
Yeah,
$25. So you lay $25 on the table every time.
It's $25 to buy bagels, and now we're all gluten free. So forget it, right? So it's the four of us. So we're going to have a session on that. I know I left out a speaker. Oh, and then Greg Renker, who's the number one infomercial guy in the world, Guthrie Renker,
Oh, really?
$2 billion business. So he's speaking on direct response TV, and then Fred Katona on direct response radio. So all multi-channel, all the things I've talked about. This is a dream come true event.
They are titans.
Yeah, they're all titans, and it's in honor of Marty Edelston, who passed away last October. All of these people are coming out for Marty because Marty was a true, and so there'll be a lot about entrepreneurship. There'll be a lot about direct marketing. Dan Kennedy and I will share the stage for the first half of the first day, kind of talking about a lot of Dan's secrets, but a lot of my secrets too, about how we built this company and what I learned from Marty. And Dan was so enthralled with my eulogy of Marty. That's how this whole event started.
Really?
He was a big fan of Marty Edelston. I mean, Dan Kennedy doesn't wax poetic about people all that often. And basically, Marty Edelston was one of his people that he looked up to. And then when I sent him my eulogy, and then Dan, it's all in my sales letter at titansofdirectresponse.com. Anybody should go to that before September and sign up. I think it's going to be an incredible event, epic event, titansofdirectresponse.com. You can also go to briankurtz.me/titans. I think you get to the same place. And I'm very excited. It's like a lifelong dream to put a dream team together of the best direct response people who I've been everybody who's speaking, except maybe for Fred, because I don't know him that well, Fred Katona, and Renker has been a hero, but not necessarily a mentor. But everybody else who's speaking is either a really close friend or a mentor or both. And so this is like a dream come true event for me. And, I really want the new generation of marketers to be there to see how this business was built and how it's going to be built going forward.
That's so awesome. And you get so excited about it. I think that's so cool to see how excited you are about this event too, let alone the freaking Titans that you have that are going to be on there.
It's going to be a cool event.
Insane. For sure. I'll have to check my calendar and make sure I'm not doing anything. So I hope everybody enjoyed this interview. Thank you so much for coming on today, Brian. It's been so nice to connect with you. And I hope everybody goes and checks out and signs up for his list right now, because everything you give is ridiculously valuable. And I want everybody to make sure they take time for that. So thanks so much for coming on the show today, Brian.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed that interview I did with Brian, our very first intrapreneur, but he is full of a ton of amazing information, which is why I made that exception. And maybe I will in the future too. The funny thing is I just did 4 millionaire interviews yesterday. I record them all in one day. One of them was with my mentor, Mike Lovitch, and he brought up Brian's name just because apparently they're really good friends. I didn't even know that. It's so funny what a small world we live in. Everybody seems to be interconnected in similar spaces. So hopefully you loved Brian and you love what he's doing and can sign up for his stuff too, because he was an amazing, amazing interview. If you haven't already, too, signed up for our waitlist for Millionaire Hustlers, go to eventualmillionaire.com/waitlist. I cannot wait to kick your butt for 90 days. So if you've been needing a butt kicking, lovingly, of course, I can't wait. You know I do martial arts. I can't wait to kick your butt. Go to eventualmillionaire.com/waitlist to find out more. Take care.